The cowboy saved her from a ruthless gang, and the Apache woman declared, "You're my husband now." The late 1800s were not kind to travelers in the wild frontier. Red River, a small town surrounded by endless plains and jagged hills, was a place where danger could appear at any moment. The streets were dusty, the wooden buildings worn from harsh weather, and the people carried the look of those who had faced many hardships. Among the town's residents, some lived quietly, trying to avoid trouble, while others were known for taking advantage of anyone who seemed weak. In this rough and often lawless place, a young Apache woman named Nayeli had grown up learning to be careful, strong, and aware of the world around her. Nayeli was different from many young women her age. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, walking with eyes that seemed to notice everything, yet she rarely sought attention. Her hair, long and dark as a raven's wing, framed a face that was calm and thoughtful. Her hands were skilled from helping her family with daily work, weaving baskets, preparing food, and caring for younger siblings. She had learned from her mother the ways of her people, how to read the land, understand the weather, and respect the spirits of nature. Life had taught her patience and courage, but she had never imagined that courage would be tested so soon, and so violently. One warm afternoon, Nayeli set out from her family's settlement to visit the town market. The market was a lively place, with merchants calling out their goods and people exchanging stories and news. She had a small bag of trade items she planned to sell or swap, items her family had carefully prepared. As she walked through the narrow dirt paths between the buildings, she kept her senses alert. She had heard rumors of a gang that had been causing trouble nearby, men who had no respect for anyone and who would rob, threaten, or hurt people without hesitation. Nayeli thought of these men, and though fear flickered in her heart, she focused on her task. She had faced challenges before, and she trusted her instincts to guide her. The sun hung high in the sky, casting long shadows from the buildings onto the ground. Nayeli paused for a moment to look around, scanning the streets. Something felt different that day, a tension in the air that made her stomach tighten. Her intuition whispered caution, but she could not yet see the danger approaching. Then, almost as if it had appeared from the shadows themselves, the gang made their move. 4 men stepped from behind barrels and corners, their faces set with harsh expressions and their hands reaching for weapons. They surrounded her quickly, leaving no escape. Nayeli's heart raced, but she remembered the lessons of her people: stay calm, think carefully, and look for a way to act wisely. "Hand over your goods," one of the men demanded, his voice rough and commanding. The others moved closer, their intentions clear. Nayeli's mind worked fast. She could not fight all 4 of them, and running alone on the dusty street would be dangerous. She looked around desperately, searching for anything, any advantage she could use. The men laughed at her hesitation, confident in their control. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, a sudden figure appeared at the edge of the street. A man, tall and strong, dressed in worn leather, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his sharp eyes, stepped forward. His hand rested lightly on the handle of a revolver at his side, but his stance was calm, deliberate, and unshakable. "Step away," he said in a voice that carried authority without anger. The gang paused, surprised by this unexpected challenge. The cowboy, whose name Nayeli would soon learn was Thomas McAllister, did not move with aggression, but his presence alone seemed to change the energy of the moment. The gang had expected an easy victim, but here was someone who radiated confidence and skill. Thomas's eyes scanned the men quickly, noting their weaknesses, the positions of their weapons, and the tension in their movements. Nayeli could feel her fear slightly ease as she realized she was not alone, and that this stranger was determined to protect her. The confrontation was tense, but Thomas moved with precision. In a few swift actions, he drew his revolver and positioned himself between Nayeli and the gang. Shots rang out, not to harm but to warn. The gang, unprepared for his skill, faltered. One man dropped his weapon, another stumbled back, and the leader, realizing he had underestimated this cowboy, shouted at his men to retreat. Within moments, they scattered, running down side streets and disappearing into the town's maze of alleys. Nayeli stood frozen for a heartbeat, her heart still racing as she watched the last of them vanish. The danger had passed as quickly as it had appeared. Thomas turned to her, his expression serious but kind. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm, not rushing her, giving her space to recover. Nayeli nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her bag. She could hardly speak at first, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. I think so," she finally said. Her voice was soft, but it carried a note of relief and gratitude. Thomas offered a reassuring smile, one that suggested not only strength but understanding and respect. He did not treat her like a helpless victim, but as someone who had faced danger bravely. As they walked together toward her family's settlement, Thomas kept a careful watch on the surroundings, alert to any signs of the gang's return. Nayeli began to speak in small sentences, explaining her purpose in the market and her life in the settlement. Thomas listened, genuinely interested, asking questions that showed he valued her words and her experience. She felt a strange sense of calm, as if a storm had passed and left a moment of peace behind. For the first time that day, Nayeli could think beyond fear, and she began to notice qualities in Thomas that went beyond his bravery, his thoughtfulness, patience, and steady presence. By the time they reached the outskirts of the settlement, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the plains. Nayeli's family came running, calling her name with worry and relief. They had heard rumors of trouble in town and had feared the worst. Thomas quietly introduced himself, and the family welcomed him with cautious gratitude, sensing the respect he had for Nayeli and their people. That evening, as Nayeli shared the story of the attack and her rescue, she realized that her life had changed in a profound way. The encounter with the gang had been terrifying, but it had also brought her into contact with someone who seemed to embody courage and honor. She did not yet know what the future would hold, but she knew that the memory of that day, the danger, the fear, and the unexpected hero, would stay with her forever. Nayeli went to bed that night thinking about the cowboy. She remembered the calmness in his eyes, the way he had acted without hesitation, and the quiet strength he had shown. She realized that bravery was not only about fighting, but about protecting, listening, and being present when it mattered most. She wondered about his life, what had brought him to Red River, and whether they would meet again. Sleep came slowly, filled with thoughts of gratitude, curiosity, and the beginnings of a connection she could not yet explain. Outside, the wind whispered through the plains, carrying the scent of dust and sage, and the stars began to appear, as if watching over a night that had changed the course of her life. The next morning, Nayeli woke with determination. She knew that life in Red River was uncertain and that danger could appear again, but she also knew that she was not alone. The cowboy who had saved her had shown her that there were people who acted with honor and courage, and that even in a harsh world, trust and kindness could exist. As she prepared to start her day, she felt a quiet strength growing inside her, a sense of hope mingled with respect and admiration for the stranger who had entered her life when she needed help the most. That day marked not just the memory of a terrifying encounter, but the beginning of a story that would weave together bravery, connection, and the unexpected ways people can enter each other's lives. After that fateful day in Red River, life began to change for Nayeli in ways she had never expected. The encounter with the gang had left her shaken, but it had also introduced her to Thomas McAllister, the cowboy who had saved her. Unlike anyone she had met before, he carried himself with a quiet strength and a calm confidence that seemed to make the world a little safer, even in the unpredictable frontier. Thomas did not demand attention or seek recognition. He simply acted with honesty, courage, and respect. Naomi found herself thinking about him often, remembering the way he had stood between her and the outlaws, how his steady eyes had reassured her, and the subtle kindness in his words. The following days, Thomas continued to visit Naomi and her family, though he did so without making them feel uncomfortable or indebted. He helped with practical tasks around their settlement, from repairing fences to assisting with the small fields where crops grew. His hands were skilled, accustomed to work both delicate and tough, and he never made Naomi feel like she was weak or incapable. Instead, he spoke to her as an equal, asking her opinions and listening carefully to her answers. Naomi had always valued wisdom and knowledge, and she found Thomas's interest in her thoughts both unusual and comforting. Many people in Red River either ignored women like her or treated them as fragile, but Thomas had a different way. He noticed her strength and respected it. One afternoon, as the sun blazed over the settlement, Thomas accompanied Naomi to check on some of the goods she had traded at the market. They walked side by side along the narrow dirt paths, the sound of their boots blending with the distant chatter of townsfolk. Naomi carried a small basket of dried herbs and woven baskets, while Thomas carried a leather satchel filled with tools and provisions he thought might help her family. As they walked, Thomas asked about her life and her people. Naomi spoke of the ways she had learned from her mother, the traditions her family honored, and the respect her people had for the land. Thomas listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he wanted to understand, not to judge. His curiosity was different from anyone she had ever met. It was warm, respectful, and sincere. During their journey, they encountered the first traces of the gang who had attacked Naomi. A discarded piece of clothing and some hoof prints reminded them that danger was never far in the frontier. Thomas immediately took action, scouting the area and ensuring that the path ahead was safe. Naomi watched him carefully, noticing not just his skill with a weapon but his patience, observation, and thoughtfulness. He was not reckless. He did not rush into action blindly. Instead, he moved with the careful calculation of someone who understood both danger and responsibility. Naomi realized that courage was more than bravery in the moment. It was also wisdom, preparation, and calm under pressure. Thomas possessed all of these qualities in abundance. As days turned into weeks, Naomi and Thomas began to spend more time together. Their connection grew naturally, without pressure or expectation. Sometimes, Thomas would share stories of his travels, speaking of faraway towns, mountains, and rivers he had crossed. Naomi listened intently, imagining the vast lands he had seen, feeling a mixture of wonder and admiration. In return, she taught him about her own world, the customs of her people, the importance of family and community, and the quiet magic of the plains that many outsiders overlooked. Thomas did not dismiss these lessons. He absorbed them with respect, showing that he valued not just her words but her culture and perspective. One evening, after a long day of work in the fields, Thomas and Naomi sat by a small stream that ran near the settlement. The water sparkled in the fading sunlight, and the gentle sounds of the current provided a peaceful backdrop to their conversation. Thomas offered her a piece of bread he had baked, and they shared a quiet meal together. Naomi noticed how he paid attention to even the smallest details, how the water reflected the sky, how the wind carried the scent of sage, and how the land itself told a story. She realized that his attentiveness extended beyond practical matters. He cared about the world around him, about people, and about moments like this. In his presence, she felt safe, understood, and valued. Not everyone in the settlement approved or understood their growing connection. Some whispered that Naomi should not trust outsiders, that Thomas was a wanderer with no real ties or responsibility. Others questioned his intentions, assuming he sought only adventure or temporary favor. Naomi, however, trusted her instincts. She had seen Thomas in danger, in calm, and in ordinary life, and she had observed his character carefully. His actions spoke louder than any rumor. He had protected her without hesitation, respected her family, and treated her as an equal. Slowly, those doubts that others held did not affect her. Nayeli began to see a future where trust, respect, and mutual support could exist even in a harsh world. The bond between them deepened during small acts of everyday life. Thomas helped repair the roof of her family's home after a storm, carrying heavy beams and working tirelessly without complaint. Nayeli, in turn, taught him how to weave simple baskets and identify herbs that could be used for medicine or cooking. They laughed at mistakes, celebrated small successes, and learned from each other. Each moment strengthened their connection, and each day, Nayeli's respect and admiration for Thomas grew. She noticed how he treated others in the settlement as well, with fairness, patience, and quiet generosity. It was clear to her that he was not a man seeking recognition, but someone who acted from a genuine desire to do right. One afternoon, while Thomas and Nayeli were gathering firewood on a hill overlooking the settlement, they spotted the distant figures of the gang members who had attacked her. Nayeli's heart skipped a beat, but Thomas calmly assessed the situation, explaining a plan to protect the settlement if the gang returned. He did not rush into confrontation, nor did he panic. His confidence inspired Nayeli to remain calm as well. They observed the movements of the gang from a safe distance, noting patterns and predicting their next actions. Thomas's ability to combine courage with wisdom impressed Nayeli deeply. She realized that real strength was not just in defending oneself, but in careful planning, strategy, and keeping others safe. Evenings often brought quiet conversations by the fire, where they shared stories and dreams. Nayeli spoke of her hopes for her people, her desire for safety, and the importance of preserving traditions. Thomas spoke of his travels, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned on the road. These conversations were not rushed. They were filled with respect, patience, and a genuine desire to understand each other. Nayeli began to see Thomas not only as a protector, but as a friend, a confidant, and someone she could rely on. His presence became a source of comfort and inspiration, reminding her that even in a world full of danger, trust and connection were possible. Over time, Nayeli realized that she had begun to rely on Thomas in ways she had not expected. She looked forward to his visits, valued his advice, and felt a sense of security in his company. But more than that, she admired his character, the way he acted with integrity, kindness, and courage in every situation. She had seen many people in her life, but Thomas was unique. He did not seek praise or attention. He simply acted from what he believed was right. This authenticity drew Nayeli closer to him, and she began to feel that their meeting was not merely coincidence, but something meaningful and lasting. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Nayeli and Thomas stood on the edge of a cliff overlooking the settlement. The world seemed quiet, as if it had paused to watch them. Thomas spoke gently, reflecting on the challenges they had faced and the ways they had supported each other. Nayeli listened, feeling a mixture of gratitude, respect, and something more that she could not yet name. In that moment, she realized that Thomas's presence in her life had changed everything. He had not only saved her physically, but had also opened the door to a bond built on trust, understanding, and shared courage. As night fell and the stars emerged in the wide, dark sky, Nayeli returned to her home with a heart full of thought. She knew that the world outside Red River was still dangerous and uncertain, but she also knew that she had someone by her side who could face it with her. Thomas had shown her that bravery was more than fighting. It was protecting, listening, respecting, and caring for others. Nayeli had never imagined that a chance encounter could lead to such connection and understanding, yet here it was, growing stronger with each passing day. The thought of him brought warmth to her heart and hope for the future, a hope that even in a world of uncertainty, true courage and respect could create something lasting and meaningful. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Nayeli and Thomas grew steadily, like a river carving its path through the plains. Life in Red River continued, with its daily chores, occasional dangers, and small moments of quiet beauty. For Nayeli, the presence of Thomas had become a source of comfort and curiosity. She began to notice the little things about him, the way he adjusted his hat when the sun was too bright, the careful way he handled his horse, and the gentle way he spoke to children and elders alike. Unlike others who wandered through the settlement for their own gain, Thomas moved with purpose and integrity. Nayeli felt a mixture of admiration and warmth toward him, a feeling that deepened with every shared task and conversation. Their days were filled with ordinary work, but ordinary work became extraordinary when shared. Thomas helped Nayeli's family with the livestock, mending fences and carrying heavy loads of firewood. He taught Nayeli some new skills, such as how to check the health of the animals and repair simple tools. Nayeli, in return, showed Thomas how to weave baskets, prepare traditional herbal remedies, and identify the signs of changing weather. They laughed at mistakes and celebrated small achievements together. These shared tasks built trust and mutual respect, showing that true connection was not just in grand gestures, but in everyday support and understanding. One morning, Thomas suggested they take a short journey beyond the settlement to a nearby hill that overlooked the plains. He wanted Nayeli to see the view he had admired in his travels. As they walked, the landscape stretched endlessly, the golden grass swaying with the wind. Nayeli felt a sense of freedom, realizing how vast and beautiful the world could be. Thomas pointed out distant rivers, clusters of trees, and the trails of animals moving through the plains. He spoke softly, explaining how he had learned to read the land and understand the patterns of nature. Nayeli listened carefully, absorbing his knowledge while sharing her own insights about the plants, the soil, and the spirits of the land that her people had always respected. Their conversation flowed easily, a mixture of stories, observations, and laughter, creating a bond that felt natural and enduring. During these excursions, Thomas began to teach Nayeli how to defend herself in small, practical ways, not with aggression, but with awareness and strategy. He showed her how to anticipate danger, read body language, and stay calm under pressure. Nayeli found these lessons empowering. She realized that courage was not only about confronting threats, but about preparation and confidence in one's own abilities. With Thomas's guidance, she felt more capable and assured in a world that could often be harsh and unpredictable. This growing confidence made her appreciate Thomas not only as a protector, but as a mentor and companion. One evening, after a long day of work and exploration, Nayeli and Thomas sat by a small campfire near the edge of the settlement. The orange glow of the flames illuminated their faces, and the soft crackle of burning wood filled the silence between words. Thomas shared stories of distant towns and the people he had met, speaking of moments of kindness and challenge alike. Nayeli responded with tales of her own life, the traditions of her people, and the lessons she had learned from her mother and elders. Each story revealed more about who they were and what they valued. Thomas admired her courage, wisdom, and deep connection to her heritage, while Nayeli admired his bravery, thoughtfulness, and the way he respected her thoughts and experiences. These quiet evenings became a cherished routine, strengthening their bond beyond friendship. As their relationship deepened, the townspeople began to notice the connection between Nayeli and Thomas. Some whispered in curiosity, others in skepticism. Outsiders often did not understand the respect and understanding that existed between them, assuming that a cowboy and an Apache woman could not form a meaningful bond. Nayeli, however, paid little attention to gossip. She trusted her own judgment, having seen Thomas's character firsthand. She recognized his integrity, his courage, and his consistent kindness. To her, these qualities mattered far more than the opinions of others. Their growing companionship was based on trust and mutual respect, not on appearances or social expectations. Challenges occasionally arose, testing their connection. A sudden storm once threatened the settlement, with strong winds and heavy rain battering the wooden structures. Thomas and Naeli worked together tirelessly to secure homes, livestock, and food supplies. They carried water, reinforced roofs, and comforted frightened children and elders. Naeli watched Thomas move with calm efficiency, never losing patience, always focused on helping others. His actions reinforced her growing admiration and trust. She saw that true courage involved selflessness and careful decision-making, not just physical strength. By the end of the storm, both were exhausted but satisfied, having protected their community and strengthened their bond through shared effort. In quieter moments, Naeli noticed how Thomas treated the natural world with care. He did not take more than he needed. He respected the plants and animals, and he spoke softly to the land as if it were alive. Naeli shared her own understanding of the spirits of nature, explaining how her people believed that every river, tree, and animal held life and wisdom. Thomas listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and showing a willingness to learn. Naeli began to see in him a rare quality, the ability to respect differences and learn without judgment. It was a trait she deeply valued, and one that made her feel connected to him on a level beyond mere friendship. Over time, small gestures revealed the depth of their growing bond. Thomas would bring fresh bread or fruits from the town market, leaving them for Naeli and her family. Naeli, in return, shared handmade baskets, dried herbs, and carefully prepared meals. These exchanges were simple but meaningful, symbolizing trust, care, and thoughtfulness. The two of them began to anticipate each other's needs, offering help or companionship without being asked. Such gestures created a rhythm to their relationship, a sense of partnership and understanding that grew naturally with each passing day. Naeli realized that she felt safe, supported, and valued in a way she had never experienced before. One afternoon, while walking through a small grove of trees at the edge of the settlement, they encountered a young child who had wandered away from the group. The child was frightened and on the verge of tears. Thomas knelt beside the child, speaking softly and calmly, while Naeli gently guided the child back to the family. The incident was minor, yet it revealed a great deal about both of them. Thomas's patience and empathy shone through, while Naeli's protective instincts and courage were evident. Together, they worked as a team, complementing each other's strengths and creating a sense of harmony and balance. Naeli felt a sense of pride and admiration for Thomas, recognizing the rare qualities that made him different from others she had met. As weeks passed, Naeli began to notice changes within herself. She felt more confident, more capable, and more open to the possibility of deep connection. Thomas's consistent presence, his patience, and his respect for her thoughts and traditions had nurtured a sense of trust and admiration. Naeli realized that their relationship was evolving from simple friendship into something deeper, a connection built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and quiet understanding. She began to anticipate his visits, value his opinions, and enjoy the moments they spent together. The thought of Thomas brought warmth to her heart, a feeling she could not ignore or dismiss. During one evening by the river, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Thomas shared his reflections on the challenges he had faced in life. He spoke of the loneliness of traveling alone, the struggles of survival, and the small acts of kindness that had left lasting impressions. Naeli listened intently, appreciating his honesty and openness. She shared her own thoughts about life, family, and the importance of courage and loyalty. In that moment, the two of them felt a profound understanding, a silent acknowledgement that they had found in each other a kindred spirit. It was a connection that required no words, built instead on mutual respect, shared experiences, and trust. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Nayeli returned to her home with a heart full of reflection. She realized that Thomas had become more than just a protector. He had become a companion, a friend, and someone she could trust completely. Their relationship was not based on grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but on quiet, consistent acts of courage, respect, and understanding. Nayeli felt a growing sense of certainty that Thomas was an important part of her life, someone whose presence could bring stability, safety, and companionship in a world that was often uncertain and dangerous. The days continued, each bringing new moments of connection, laughter, and shared work. Nayeli and Thomas began to look forward to their time together, anticipating the small adventures, conversations, and quiet moments that defined their growing bond. They discovered that companionship was not about constant excitement or drama, but about understanding, patience, and shared responsibility. Nayeli felt a sense of gratitude for the unexpected turn of events that had brought Thomas into her life, recognizing that sometimes the most meaningful connections arose from circumstances that initially seemed frightening or uncertain. By the end of the weeks, Nayeli understood something important. She trusted Thomas not only because he had saved her life, but because he had consistently shown integrity, courage, and kindness in every interaction. She admired him for his actions, his respect for her, and his willingness to learn from her. More than that, she had come to feel a deep connection, a sense of belonging and understanding that was rare and precious. Nayeli realized that their bond was no longer simply about gratitude or friendship. It was something deeper, a connection built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and the quiet knowledge that they could rely on each other in a world full of uncertainty. Time in Red River had a way of blending routine with moments of quiet wonder. For Nayeli, each day was now colored with thoughts of Thomas McAllister. He had become more than a visitor or helper. He was a presence that brought calm, security, and warmth into her life. Their connection had grown slowly, naturally, and with a depth that words could not fully describe. Nayeli found herself looking forward to their shared moments, the small acts of work, the quiet conversations by the river, and the evenings spent walking across the plains. Each encounter strengthened her trust, admiration, and slowly, a sense of love that had quietly taken root in her heart. One late afternoon, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Thomas suggested they take a walk along a trail that led to a small hill on the edge of the plains. "I want to show you something," he said, a hint of mystery in his voice. Nayeli, curious and trusting, agreed. They walked together, the warm breeze carrying the scent of sage and dry grass. The trail was familiar to Thomas, who had traveled these lands before, but to Nayeli it felt new and alive, filled with the possibility of discovery. They spoke little at first, allowing the natural beauty around them to fill the silence. The vastness of the plains reminded Nayeli of how small they were in the world, yet how meaningful their lives could be through courage, respect, and connection. As they reached the top of the hill, the view took their breath away. Rolling plains stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with clusters of trees, winding rivers, and distant mountains bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Nayeli felt a wave of awe, a quiet reminder of the beauty of the world and the blessings that could be found even amidst danger and uncertainty. Thomas stood beside her, his eyes reflecting the same wonder, but also a deep calm and contentment. He had seen many lands, many sunsets, yet this one felt different, shared with someone who had become an important part of his life. Nayeli glanced at him and felt a rush of gratitude and admiration, the bond between them becoming almost tangible in the quiet of the evening. They sat on a large flat rock, the breeze gently moving Naomi's hair. Thomas handed her a piece of bread and some dried fruit he had brought, and they ate in companionable silence. The simple act felt significant, a moment of shared trust and comfort. Naomi thought about the weeks that had passed, the shared work, the lessons, the laughter, and the quiet evenings by the fire. She realized that she had come to rely on Thomas not just for protection or guidance, but for companionship and understanding. He had shown her the meaning of true courage, kindness, and respect. His presence had become a steadying force in her life, a quiet assurance that she was not alone in facing the challenges of the frontier. After a while, Thomas spoke, his voice soft and thoughtful. "Naomi," he said, "I've been through many towns, met many people, and faced many dangers, but I have never met someone like you. You are brave, wise, and kind. You see the world in ways I've never understood before." Naomi listened, her heart quickening, aware that his words carried sincerity and admiration. She felt a warmth she had never experienced before, a feeling that went beyond friendship or gratitude. Thomas's eyes met hers, steady and honest, and in that moment she realized how much she had come to care for him, how much she trusted him, and how deeply she admired the man he was. Naomi took a deep breath, feeling the wind against her face and the soft earth beneath her. She thought about the life they had shared in such a short time, the dangers they had faced, the quiet moments of understanding, and the respect that had grown between them. Her heart was full of emotion, and she realized that she could no longer keep her feelings to herself. The courage that had always been part of her spirit surged forward, not as a fight against danger, but as a declaration of truth and connection. "Thomas," she began, her voice steady but filled with feeling, "you've come into my life when I needed someone the most. You've shown me kindness, courage, and respect. I feel something for you that I cannot ignore." Her eyes met his, searching, honest, and full of the depth of her heart. Thomas reached out, gently taking her hand in his, a gesture of both comfort and understanding. "Naomi," he said softly, "I feel the same. From the moment I met you, I knew there was something special. Your courage, your wisdom, and your heart have shown me what truly matters. I respect you, and I care for you more than I can say." The air around them seemed to hum with the intensity of their shared emotion. In that moment, the dangers of the world, the gang, the harshness of the frontier, felt distant and insignificant. What mattered most was the bond they had built, the trust they had earned, and the mutual understanding that had grown between them. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plains, and Naomi felt a quiet certainty bloom within her. She took a step closer to Thomas, her eyes shining with determination and clarity. "Thomas," she said, her voice firm but tender, "you are my husband now." Her words were not just a declaration of love but a statement of commitment, trust, and connection. In her culture, such a declaration carried weight, signifying not just emotional attachment but a bond built on respect, loyalty, and shared life. She had made her choice with full understanding, and she felt a sense of peace and confidence in her decision. Thomas's eyes widened slightly at the boldness of her words, a mixture of surprise and deep respect in his expression. He understood the significance of what she had said, recognizing the courage and conviction behind it. Without hesitation, he accepted her declaration, placing his hand gently over hers. "Then I am honored," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I will stand by you, protect you, and share my life with you. Your trust is the greatest gift I could receive, and I will honor it every day." In that moment, a profound sense of unity and understanding passed between them. Their bond, once formed through acts of courage and kindness, had now been sealed through honesty, respect, and mutual choice. The evening settled into a quiet, magical calm. The plains stretched endlessly before them, bathed in the soft light of twilight. Naomi and Thomas remained seated on the rock, hands intertwined, speaking softly about the life they hoped to build together. They spoke of protecting the settlement, helping the community, and sharing knowledge and skills with others. They imagined a future where courage, respect, and mutual support would guide their decisions, and where love would be an enduring foundation. In each other's presence, they felt both strength and comfort, a partnership forged not only by circumstance but by deliberate choice and shared values. As darkness fell, the first stars appeared, twinkling in the vast sky above. Naomi looked up and felt a sense of wonder and gratitude, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The fear and uncertainty she had experienced during the gang attack seemed like a distant memory, replaced by trust, admiration, and love. She realized that the bond they shared was rare and precious, built not on chance alone, but on courage, honesty, and the consistent care they had shown each other. Thomas squeezed her hand gently, and she knew in that moment that they had both found a true companion for life. Returning to the settlement, Naomi felt a quiet strength in her steps. She moved with confidence, knowing that the declaration she had made was not just about emotion, but about the trust, respect, and shared life she envisioned with Thomas. The family noticed a change in her demeanor, a serene confidence and joy that came from knowing she had found someone who valued and understood her. Thomas's presence complemented her courage and wisdom, creating a partnership that could face the challenges of the frontier together. Their connection had become a source of inspiration, not only for themselves but for those around them, showing that trust, respect, and love could flourish even in a harsh and unpredictable world. The following days were filled with quiet preparations for a life together. Naomi and Thomas worked side by side, helping the settlement, sharing tasks, and strengthening their partnership through action. Their bond deepened not through words alone, but through the consistency of care, courage, and mutual understanding. They became known in the community not only as individuals of strength and integrity, but as a pair whose connection inspired respect and admiration. Naomi's declaration had transformed their relationship, creating a foundation of trust, love, and shared purpose that promised to endure. By the end of the week, the settlement had come to accept their partnership. Naomi and Thomas were no longer simply an Apache woman and a wandering cowboy. They were companions, partners, and equals, bound by shared experiences, mutual respect, and the quiet, profound declaration that had brought them together. Their story was beginning to spread quietly through Red River, not as a tale of drama, but as a testament to courage, trust, and the deep connections that could grow even in the most unlikely of circumstances. Naomi's words, "You are my husband now," had not only marked a turning point in their lives but had also become a symbol of hope, courage, and the enduring power of respect and love. Life after Naomi's declaration was unlike anything she had ever imagined. Thomas had accepted her words with honor, and their bond had become the foundation for a life full of trust, respect, and shared purpose. In the days that followed, the settlement noticed a new rhythm in their lives. Naomi moved with quiet confidence, her steps lighter, her smile brighter. Thomas continued to help where he could, but now their efforts felt shared, deliberate, and meaningful. They were no longer simply two people helping each other. They were partners, companions, and equals, walking together through a world that could be harsh and unpredictable. The first months of their life together were filled with simple routines that grew into rituals of companionship. Each morning, Naomi would rise with the sun, tending to the small fields and checking on the livestock. Thomas would rise shortly after, bringing fresh water and helping to repair fences or strengthen the shelters. Together, they worked to ensure the settlement was safe, productive, and welcoming. The hard labor, which could have been tiring or burdensome, became an opportunity to strengthen their partnership. They spoke little while working, letting the rhythm of their tasks create a natural connection, yet in each glance, each gesture, there was understanding and care. One day, as they repaired a section of fence near the edge of the settlement, a group of children ran past them, laughing and shouting. Nayeli and Thomas paused, sharing a quiet smile at the joy of the younger generation. The couple began to teach the children simple skills: how to identify herbs, care for animals, and respect the land. Nayeli shared the traditions of her people, explaining the importance of listening to nature, understanding the rhythms of the earth, and honoring the spirits of the land. Thomas added his own lessons, showing how to read the weather, observe the movement of animals, and stay safe in the wilderness. Together, they became mentors, guiding the children with patience, kindness, and wisdom. Evenings were reserved for reflection and quiet companionship. After the work was done, Nayeli and Thomas would sit by the fire, sharing stories, dreams, and observations. Thomas often spoke of his travels, recounting distant towns, mountains, and rivers he had seen, while Nayeli shared the rich heritage of her people, the lessons of her family, and the wisdom of the land. These exchanges were not just stories, they were lessons, bonds, and memories being built together. Each evening brought laughter, learning, and a deeper understanding of each other's hearts and minds. Nayeli began to feel that their life together was not only safe and stable, but rich with meaning, purpose, and joy. One spring morning, the couple noticed signs that the gang which had once threatened Nayeli was attempting to return. Instead of fear, Nayeli felt determination, knowing that Thomas and the community were prepared. They organized the settlement, securing the livestock, checking defenses, and ensuring that the children and elders were safe. When the gang arrived, confident and threatening, they were met with a coordinated, calm, and well-prepared defense. Thomas stood at Nayeli's side, their hands brushing for a moment, a silent promise of support and trust. The gang, realizing that their intimidation would not work, quickly retreated. Nayeli and Thomas's bond had not only created safety for themselves, but had strengthened the settlement as a whole. Their life together was also filled with moments of beauty and connection that required no work at all. They would ride their horses across the plains at sunset, the wind in their hair, the earth stretching endlessly around them. Nayeli would point out the signs of approaching weather, the tracks of animals, or the patterns of the stars above, while Thomas would watch with admiration, noting how she had learned to read the land with such clarity and care. These rides were a form of quiet communion, a way to connect with each other and with the natural world. In these moments, words were often unnecessary. Their presence together was enough. Thomas and Nayeli also began to plan for the future in more concrete ways. They discussed the possibility of building stronger homes, expanding the fields, and creating a small school where children of the settlement could learn practical skills, respect for the land, and knowledge of both cultures. They wanted to ensure that their community would thrive, not only survive. Nayeli's knowledge of traditional practices combined with Thomas's experiences from his travels, creating a balance of wisdom and innovation. Their shared vision for the future strengthened their partnership, giving their life together a sense of purpose and direction. Over time, their union inspired others in the settlement. Couples began to approach their relationship with admiration, seeing in Nayeli and Thomas an example of partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual support. Elders spoke of how rare it was to find such a balance, where courage, wisdom, and kindness were equally valued. Nayeli's family saw the strength and honor Thomas brought to her life, and they welcomed him fully into their circle. The community, once wary of outsiders, began to view Thomas not as a wanderer but as an essential part of their lives, someone who had proven himself through actions, integrity, and care. Even in moments of quiet, the love between Nayeli and Thomas deepened. One night, while sitting beneath the stars, Thomas gently held Nayeli's hand and spoke softly. "I have traveled many lands, seen many dangers, and faced many hardships, but I have never known a life like this." With you, everything feels grounded, meaningful, and true." Naeli looked at him, feeling the warmth of his words and the sincerity in his eyes. "And I have never felt more certain," she replied. "You are not just my companion, Thomas. You are my partner, my equal, and my strength. Together, we can face anything." In that simple exchange, they reaffirmed the depth of their bond, a connection that went beyond love to partnership, respect, and shared life. Seasons changed, and life in the settlement continued with its rhythms of work, celebration, and quiet reflection. Naeli and Thomas celebrated harvests, weathered storms, and helped the community grow stronger and safer. They raised a family together, teaching their children the values that had brought them together: courage, respect, patience, and understanding. Naeli's traditions were passed down alongside Thomas's knowledge of the wider world, creating a household rich in wisdom, love, and resilience. The children grew up watching their parents as examples of partnership and integrity, learning that true strength comes not from domination or fear, but from compassion, courage, and respect for others. Years later, the story of Naeli and Thomas became a quiet legend in Red River. People remembered the day a lone cowboy had saved an Apache woman from a gang, and how she had boldly declared, "You are my husband now." But the story that endured was not only about courage in a single moment, it was about the life they built afterward. It was about partnership, trust, shared responsibility, and the deep, enduring connection that had begun in a moment of danger and flourished through mutual respect and love. Their life together showed that even in a harsh world, human connection, kindness, and loyalty could create something extraordinary and lasting. As they grew older, Naeli and Thomas continued to support each other, their bond strengthened by decades of shared experiences. They faced challenges together, celebrated joys together, and weathered hardships together. Every evening they would sit by the fire, recounting the day's events, sharing stories, and simply enjoying each other's presence. They had built a life that was rich, meaningful, and full of love, not a love born of convenience or expectation, but one forged in courage, trust, and mutual respect. Their story became a symbol of what was possible when two people came together with honesty, integrity, and shared purpose. The plains around Red River remained vast, open, and sometimes dangerous, but Naeli and Thomas faced it together. They walked through the world as equals, companions, and partners, showing that courage and love were strongest when shared. Even years after the initial act of bravery that had brought them together, their connection remained unshakable, a testament to the power of trust, respect, and devotion. In their life, danger had been met with bravery, challenges had been faced with unity, and love had grown from respect and understanding. Naeli often reflected on how her life had changed in a single afternoon when the gang had appeared and Thomas had come to her aid. What had begun as fear and uncertainty had blossomed into a life of partnership, purpose, and love. She realized that the world was unpredictable, that challenges would always arise, but that with the right companion, courage and kindness could overcome even the harshest obstacles. Thomas had shown her that a strong heart and a steady hand, combined with honesty and respect, could create a bond that lasted a lifetime. In the end, their story was not just about a cowboy and an Apache woman. It was about the strength of the human spirit, the power of trust and respect, and the enduring beauty of partnership. Naeli and Thomas built a life together filled with meaning, purpose, and love, teaching all who knew them that true connection is forged through courage, understanding, and mutual care. Their legacy lived on not only through their children and the community they helped nurture, but also through the example of a life built on shared values and deep respect. Even as the sun set over the plains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Naeli and Thomas sat together, hand in hand, looking over the land that had shaped them and that they had helped shape in return. The quiet wind carried the scent of sage and the promise of tomorrow, and in that moment they knew that whatever challenges might come, they would face them together, side by side, with courage, love, and unwavering trust. Their life, born from a moment of danger, had grown into a story of lasting devotion, partnership, and hope, a story that would be remembered for generations to come.